Ladies and not ladies of KanDDDinsky, welcome to the last talk of the day about my series of talks of philosophy applied to tech. As any other talks of the day, you can feel free at any moment if you want to join in this QR code, this Excalibur board, where I have put all the notes I do, and that I'm doing, each time I'm doing a talk, I'm doing notes at the same time. You can add to those notes, correct my typos if you want, whatever floats your boat, or just not do this at all. No problem at all here. So we are here to talk right now about reaction. I mean, a very specific definition of reaction. So, have you ever watched this movie, Star Trek, by J.J. Abrams? Maybe, yeah? Do you know a little bit of Star Trek as a universe? Is anybody here a total Star Trek newbie or something like that? Or, okay, so we have a Star Trek newbie, just like giving the bare minimum of context here. Star Trek is like this science fiction universe where people live in kind of space socialism, like money does not make sense anymore. You have machines that can create anything out of thin air, and everybody's provided for every need. There is no want in the system anymore, and people decide to do colonialism in space because that's what's left to do. So there is this, one of the many Star Trek movies, there is this scene where Kirk, which is one of the characters in Star Trek, it's not very important. He's a kid, he's not usually a kid, he's a flashback when Kirk was a kid, and he's stealing his stepfather's car to joyride in the middle of Ohio or something like that, in the middle of nowhere in the United States, Iowa, in the middle of a huge corn field, right? And in that scene you have Sabotage, which is a very good song that I highly recommend. Nothing to do with talk, but go for it. And so you have that scene, Kirk, kid, stealing car to joyride in the middle of cornfield, yeah? And there is this amazing lady on the internet that it's called Sarah Taber. I think that's her name. She's a specialist in biology and gardening, agrarian engineering. She writes a lot about people doing agriculture, basically, right? And Sarah Taber saw that scene, and she arrives at a conclusion that I love, which is Star Trek has slavery. Just from Kirk in the middle of a cornfield, right? That's everything she had. Everything she had is Kirk in the middle of this cornfield in Iowa. And the conclusion is Star Trek has slavery. And that conclusion is a very beautiful conclusion to me. And it ties deep inside the subject of the talk of reaction itself. She concludes to that to say, in a society that is post-needing anything, if people are planting these gigantic cornfields like we do today, or the real explanation, of course, is that they did not create a specific cornfield for the movie, they just used an existing one, of course. She's not ignoring that, she's just playing with it, right? And she says, well, if this cornfield exists as such in this distant future where we don't have any needs, then it means a lot of stuff. For us, it's just a cornfield, because when we imagine a cornfield, we imagine that. But for that society to have such a cornfield, it means a lot of stuff. It means that either they need or they are very, very dedicated course players, right? That's not impossible. There are people in the United States today that do like reenactments of the Civil War, where they go to high levels of cosplaying the whole year, like preparing things the whole year to be very truth to matter. But like today's cornfields, they are incredibly adapted to cheap labor. And those are not the constraints where you have everybody has whatever they want. We would organize the cornfields differently if our goal was to produce corn. Like, you don't even need to produce corn because you have the machines that create everything out of thin air. But supposedly you want to do some gardening, you want to produce corn because that's what you want to do. You would organize them differently unless you have a lot of cheap labor, like a lot of people that want to do reenactment of cornfields of the 20th century, right? So, and then maybe we will not do like monocrops, like a single crop of corn. Like people will have diversity or something like that, and they don't have it. They have monocrops of corn in the middle of nowhere in this field. So what we have is this conclusion of, if we need the corn, then something is amiss. If we need the corn, if we need to produce so much corn of such specific type, then the only logical explanation is that the machine that produces everything out of thin air uses corn as a fuel, maybe. And if it uses corn, then Star Trek is not talking about that, right? And there are good reasons why you should not be talking about that. Like, if he uses corn, then you need corn. If you need corn, you need people working the cornfields. But if people don't need anything because the machines produce everything they want and they still will go work in the cornfields, then you have a group of people that does not have access to the machines and have to work the cornfields, right? And hence, Star Trek has space slavery. And I love that conclusion, and like as a thought experiment, because you do not know what a post-capitalistic cornfield would look like. That's the main takeaway, right? You have no idea of what there is. You just think of it as a cornfield. Sorry. Yes. You do not know. You have no idea. You have no previous idea of, like, if you are a very good, like Sarah Tabaris, if you're a very good agrarian, you would know what's strange about this cornfield. And you would say, if I want to plant a cornfield with less people, I'll probably plant in this other way. But you do not know what a post-capitalistic cornfield looks like. You do not know what a post-capitalistic clothes look like. If you look at your own clothes, if you look at any object around you, the aesthetics of the objects themselves are tied to the means of productions of those objects. And you have no idea of what they would look like if the means of productions were different. Like, we like to think about the way objects evolve over time as just techniques evolving, but they were also means of production evolving. We had, like what we give ourselves as security regulations and things like that change how we build buildings. Like buildings we had in the past, it's not only a difference of technology, it's very hard to build like a cathedral like we did in the Gothic period today. It's not impossible, but it's incredibly hard an experiment. Just having cathedrals, like Gothic cathedrals, I don't know if you like those, but people that started building them never saw the end of it. Like some of them took like 400 years to be built. It's like you pass in a project over time, over generations of people that keep doing it until it finishes it, yeah? And our current means of doing it usually do not amount to that. We are in a means of production that is way more short-sighted. And I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just, it is measurable, that is looking for earlier returns of investment on things. And hence, we do not look towards such long projects, usually. This is like reductive. It's a gross oversimplification, but you get what I mean when I say that? Sorry? First time it happens in the day. You do not know what a post-capitalistic corn field will be like, or a post-capitalistic clove, or a city. Like, just thinking about a city like Paris, where I live, or like whatever city you're living right now, a lot of the urbanization, or a lot of like just making the city clean is a lot of work that depends of having a lot of labor that is cheaper and that is doing that there. If the labor was no longer cheaper and if people were a little bit more equal, then we would have to organize otherwise. How do we do this? And that organization will change things. Like the stories we will tell would be different. The stories we will see would be different. Like Star Trek that still needs corn, but has no slavery. At the very least, it would have some stories about, hey, yeah, I worked my time in the cornfields for the greater good. Right? And those stories are just not there at all. So, that absence of, like, in very small details, the system in which you live recreates itself in everything you imagine. That, my friends, is reaction. Reaction is the title of the talk. Reaction is a mechanism of, very fancy word, autopoiesis. Let's talk about that. So, a system is autopoietic if it is able to reproduce itself, is able to recreate, the system is managed to recreate itself in new generations of itself over time. Yeah? Make sense? One of the ways we turn human systems autopoietic is that we have reaction. We have this part of us that cannot imagine what it is outside of the system. So everything we try to do that is a new system recreates the system itself. I just gave up to now examples that were aesthetic, but it's not only aesthetics, right? It's not only how we would look like, what narratives we would have. It's always like, what does it mean at all to be other than what we are right now, right? Every time people imagine how we would organize, by naivety, they re-put inside this new other system elements of the current system that they just do not have vision over, they do not have conscience over. Yeah? Not saying that transformation is impossible, I'm just saying that we kept doing this for the last thousands of years. That's what I say. And we changed means of production many times over those thousands of years. It's just like, it is a force of inertia, yeah? When we imagine a system of production different from ours, we have naiveties that recreate ours inside this new dreamed system. That's basically reaction. That's the problem we're trying to tackle here. Yeah?
You should change naivety to that's an important word.
Oh, okay. I get, okay, naiveties, yeah, okay. Yeah? Good? Are we good with that? I mean, is the sound. Yeah, we imagine a different system have these naiveties that recreate our current system. I always use this example here. So we look into the new system for the things we find familiar in the old system, and that recreates the old system. This ends up with you trying to use chopsticks as a fork or something like that. Yeah? I love coffee. Just a thing I love. And like Turkish coffee glass. Like, no, Turkish tea glass, Turkish tea glass, Turkish tea glass. Turkish tea glass is like this. I don't know if you've ever seen that. So it's hot as fuck. I spent, up to discuss with a Turkish person, I hated Turkish tea glasses. I bought coffee in it, but like I hate the glass itself because like, this is awkward. I always burning my fingers on this thing. And because I was expecting to touch the body of the glass, but the Turkish people don't touch the body of the glass. They take the rim of it and just do this real quick, and it works. Like the air flow makes that you're not burning neither your tongue, not yourself, and having this a very high temperature is a very efficient tool if you don't try to use it like a French glass. Right? But if you try to use it as a French glass, it will be a very, very painful experience. So, our own attempts to trying to find familiarity pushes us towards suffering. Yeah? Good? Yay? Yay, yay. So, this became a problem to a lot of people, because people want to change things, yeah? So whatever are your opinions about the communists, I not try to defend that you should like communism. It's just that they have experienced reports about trying to fight reaction. And and I'm now going to give you those experience reports. This is, again, not attempting to convince you to go towards communism. Like, as a matter of fact, I will only cite people I specifically hate, just to level the playing field. So, like, I not even go into the communists I admire. Let's go just like for specifically the communists that I deeply, deeply, deeply dislike. But just like being level with you, there are communists that I love, like, whose work I admire gigantically, but the communists, they try to fight reaction and they have experienced reports, and some people dislike the communists, so like, let's just dislike those communists together while taking the experience reports. Yeah? Sounds fair to you? Good. So let's talk about Trotsky and Lenin and Bakunin and Kropotkin on the topic of reaction. So Marx, not talking about Marx, but Marx was each one of those gave a different name to reaction, which is a pain. I just choose the name reaction, okay? Pick one, I don't care. The problem itself, they redefine, and give a different name to it. They disagree in the naming convention, and that's painful in itself. But like Marx refuses to explain what communism would look like. He just gives you ways to seeing the problem of capitalism, but it never describes the utopia. And it's a very deliberate action when Marx does that, because the problem of reaction, because Marx knew that if he described what communism would look like, he would recreate capitalism inside it. He knew he was a product of capitalism itself. Yeah. He was born in capitalism. He was inside it. He could not, he knew this was what we're talking about here. He knew he was describing from within capitalism. So he can only give tools to see the problem, not tools to imagine what would be a system outside of this. Right? A lot of people, like in the DDD community, when you try to transform companies or agile transformations or something like that, a lot of people will say things like, we don't know what it will look like, but then people are mad at you, and then you start creating measures of what it would look like that you know are completely false, just to placate people demanding a future to dream of, yeah? Because people need a future to dream of. Make sense? So, I'm just using the returns of experience of those 4 dudes. Again, let's go there. Kropotkin, he has a way of dealing, his idea of how to deal with reaction was the Nike way. A very simple approach to things. Just do it. Like, first we do the revolution, then we'll tackle reaction as we go. We will fail. We will fail. We will retrospect. We will fail better after. That, like Kropotkin's approach, very simple approach, we will fail after. We are together, we are in this. There is no way we can imagine what would be a world without current systems. We will just iterate little by little the system together. Iterate on this, iterate on this, iterate on this. Every time we see a problem together, we will see together and then get to the other side. There is no expectations of what we do to prepare the transition. We just go headfirst into that transition. Yeah? That's Kropotkin's approach. And I hate Kropotkin for many reasons. Racism is a big one. But, I mean, dude was literally a noble with a thief that decided to kill the nobles with thieves to join the proletariat. So I'll give that to him. Like, he lived what he preached. He just did it. And so, okay, that's Kropotkin's approach. And Lenin has a very valid criticism of that approach. Again, I hate Lenin. Really, literally, I hate Lenin. But like, he has a very valid criticism of that approach, which was, it will never work because as one person starts to putting their head out of the sea, everybody else is like pushing that person backwards. Reaction, we're just maximizing reaction if you do that. Every time somebody proposes something, it will be weird to everybody else. It will be weird for everybody else because we cannot imagine a system outside of a current system. And by doing so, we are like just maximizing the chances of inertia. And we could draw a parallel to every organization transformation when you look at this, right? Like, yeah, just by saying, hey, yeah, if you care deeply about agility, if everybody's caring about agility, or everybody's caring about security, or everybody's caring about DDD, and nobody cared before about that, we will just discuss between us and iterate and do better and fail better every day. You could see like how easily we could reach a plateau where most people believe they're already doing it, and they're just very, very far from it. Make sense? So it was Lenin's criticism of Kropotkin. So Lenin had a solution. I disagree with his solution just before I say it, right? But like Lenin had a solution in mind, a very specific one, which was less trust the work. We create a small group of people, a small workforce. Let's call them the avant-garde. Later in English, they call that Vanguard. I don't know why. Yeah. Let's have those people struggle against reaction. They will fail. Like Kropotkin said, right? They will iterate. They will do better, do worse, continue. They will fail continuously. At some point, they will imagine what are clothes outside of capitalism? What is a cornfield outside of capitalism? Things like that. They will reach solutions to those problems. And everybody else should follow them. Yeah? We have people that will be named as experts of this. They will work on this. They will fail. They'll fail better every day. And we're just following them into this. Yeah? And if you disagree with them, that's the reaction talking. And hence, there are only 3 places where you could be. Either you are at the vanguard, either you are following the vanguard, or you are reaction and we should kill you. Choose where you want to be, right? And like, to defense of Lenin, like, again, I don't like the guy, neither his ideas, but like, to the defense of Lenin, a lot of the reaction was very armed, so like the killing part was not very, like, it made local sense. But like, the question was, either you are able to make part of the small workforce that is able to advance on this, or you are able to follow, or you are a resistance that we should deal with, basically. Yeah? That's the way that he was trying to fight reaction. And to Lenin's point, he saw that as a temporary measure. He did not saw that as communism. He saw that as a passing from a current system that was oppressive to another one that was oppressive, but that had some chances to arrive at the other side and leave oppression behind. That's his vision, right? So at some point, nobody would be able to remember what was a capitalistic cornfield. And at that point, we do not need the vanguard anymore. And at that point, we rejoice, and we join the Kropotkin solution. Yeah? That was Lenin's grand vision. I mean, grossly oversimplified, but you get my gist, yeah? And then there is this guy, Bakunin, that says something like, when I am being hit by a baton, I don't care if it is the baton of the bourgeoisie or proletariat. Was saying, if you are going to force me into submission, I no longer care if the person that is doing this is doing because they want to dominate me or because they believe we should arrive at the other side, outside of oppression. What he was trying to say is we cannot create a better system using an oppressive system as a step back, as a stepping stone, basically. But we have this stalemate, right? And during this time, Trotsky, he was saying, all of this, Kropotkin solution, Lenin solution, all of this believes that there is another side. There is an after in which we are in a different system altogether. And maybe that's true, but we'd have no guarantees of that. So he talked about the revolution is permanent. Talked about, in order to change the system, we enter a phase of ever-changing that never has another side. So we do not believe, he did not believe that you could have an agile transformation and be agile on the other side. You are eternally increasing maturity. You cannot have a transformation where everybody has design sensitivity on the other side. You are eternally investing design in sensitivity. It's not everybody became safe. Everybody is eternally thinking about security together. And he did not disagree with Lenin that Kropotkin was wrong. He believed that Kropotkin was wrong, that you could not just make everybody retrospect together. That did not scale. So Trotsky's solution to all that was we need a system of creating local vanguards that get destroyed and remade and destroyed and remade and destroyed and remade, so that people are locally, ephemerally, in the vanguard, and everybody practices being the vanguard, and everybody practices following, basically. Ephemeral vanguards, right? Plural, many, continuous, and everybody practicing leading and following. Now, how much time do I have? How much time do I have? Sorry, just picking this. Yes, I have enough. Good. Now, the problem here is, for many reasons, I dislike those guys, but for what I'm giving as an example, I would join Trotsky. I believe to any bigger transformation of a system, we embrace a thing that has no end state. We embrace a thing that has no end of maturity. We embrace something that has an inquirer that can only keep going as an inquirer. I believe that individually people reach levels of maturity where they're no longer investing in increasing maturity. But I believe that no social system reaches such a point unless they are a very simple social system, very small social system. So individuals that's my belief, right? My belief is individuals may reach a maturity level of a skill or set of beliefs where the law of diminished returns hits them, it is no longer worth for them individually to increase skill. It's no longer worth for them individually to increase that skill or belief or anything that they want to improve, change. But I also believe that human systems, unless they are ridiculous, small, and simple, do not reach that. Which means, for me, that the revolution is permanent. Reaction is always there. Reaction is always something that we are trying to point to and look into and deliberately retrospect into. And we cannot do so if we not share a common vision of how we do look into reaction. It becomes something to prioritize, something to discuss about. reaction is always there, and changing the system needs discussion of how we see it and where we see it. And of course, our own discussions of reaction, we will have reaction. There is no pure interaction free of reaction. That does not exist. It cannot exist, right? So, with that in mind, a essential matter becomes, how do I not give up this? Right? At least is a question that I receive a lot. Like, okay, yeah, this is like a uphill battle. And how do I not give up? It's a common question. I don't know if you have the question inside of you. Maybe you say, no, never had the problem. I can just do this all day, every day, all year in my life, and I'm good with that. In that case, the rest of the talk will not be very useful to you. But if you had that problem at some point, maybe it will. Make sense? So, people get disappointed of many things. Like Lacan will say, again, when I say Lacan, please, I'm not endorsing Lacan, right? Never, never, never. There are philosophers that I admire. Lacan is really not one of them. But like, Lacan, like the Buddhists, would say that the problem comes from desire, right? You're yearning too much to be elsewhere, and you're not accepting enough what you have. I disagree with that, but like, that's one approach to solving the problem, right? It's just like ever trying, ever failing better, and just increasing the space where you accept where we are right now. Yeah. Our good friend Kierkegaard would go way, way, way more extreme on this, and would say that we should kill the part of us that expects better. Again, I do not advise that. Like, you do you. But he wanted that, right? He said that like the problem is there is a difference between that part of you that expects meaning in the world and the part of you that sees the world as something that has no meaning. And you should stop looking for meaning. You should stop having that desire altogether. I disagree with Kierkegaard, but those are approaches of people that have tried this. Like people whose thinking was respected by many, and that decided that if you want to fight reaction, if you want to go into this uphill battle, you should go with increasing the space in which you can accept what it is right now, and even stop and desire anything else, because the desire will be the source of suffering. I do not enter into what practices lead to that for them. Like it's just like they give themselves that as a goal, as an objective, as something that they're seeking all the time. Then you have a good friend of mine, Albert Camus. And we talk about absurdism. So Camus, what he saw is the yearning for meaning, the yearning to do something that that changes stuff, that yearning it should be accepted. I'll explain in details later, but like just quick version of Camus, quick first version is embracing that you want meaning and the world lacks it. That's very first draft, real quick one. Yeah? Like embracing both that you have this deep yearning desire for meaning and the world has not that. And I'll go back to it. One of the main points I'm trying to give of this uphill battle is a battle of, again, nihilism. Who was in the previous talk, the talk I just gave before? Somebody? Okay. So, to the people that were not, the like very quick 3 minutes version of it is you have this dude, Nietzsche, that explained nihilism as our attempts to free ourselves. We have a fear of pain, algophobia, no relation at all with algorithms, two different altogether origins of words. To have this fear of pain, and that fear of pain leads you to avoid yourself, and you avoid yourself by avoiding introspection, by avoiding looking into what makes you suffer. And in order to do that, you try to numb yourself, and there are many ways in which you numb yourselves, like, for example, arriving at home and putting Netflix and just like trying to disconnect your brain. And you could do that without avoiding yourself, but you can do that to numb yourself and avoid. Or like orgy feelings like drugs or alcohol and things like that in order to numb that. Or like just going to a football match and being part of a big group of people that is bigger than you. Or trying to just work a lot to disconnect from everything else and to tire yourself out. Or just adhering a set of beliefs that allows you to stop looking inward, right? Those are the main ways. You can do each one of those without avoiding yourself, but if you do any of those in order to avoid yourself, you are falling prey to nihilism, basically. That's the 1 minute version of the previous talk. Like you can watch the talk later to have a 50-minute version of that, yeah? And we live in a nihilistic system trying to fight the existence of nihilism around us, is trying to find this fear of pain around us, and we don't know how it would be because we do this all the time. Every single human being has nihilistic behaviors. Wherever you, at some point we will have it. You can look back in your life and say, oh yeah, at this moment I did this. And if you can't, if you are right now saying, hey, no, I never had any one of those behaviors in order to avoid myself, that self-hypnosis is one of the 5 ones, right? You just do this in real time, okay? So we all have those. In order to try to change this fear of pain, we have to look inward. In order to look inward, in order to try to change the system, in order to try to change the system, we have the problem of the reaction of ourselves, try to avoid ourselves. Make sense? All right. So, Camus has this amazing idea. It's not a complete solution to this, right? It's just an approach of what to attempt. He says, okay, there is always a part of us that is suffering about the fact that we have no meaning because we live in a world that has none, and we are like apes that has this fundamental need for meaning. Like in the same way that we have a need for love or for water or for food or for like belonging, we have a need for meaning. And our own need of meaning, because it will never be completely fulfilled, is a continuous need of suffering, because a continuous source of suffering, and because we are continuous suffering with it, we end up trying not to look inward. trying to flee, is one of our main sources of nihilism, right? And so Camus came with an idea. I'm not saying it's a good idea, but it's worth the try. He said, okay, I cannot guarantee that there is no meaning in the world, but let's prepare for the idea that maybe there isn't. Yeah? And if we discover that there is, then even better, but let's prepare for a complete lack of meaning. And he proposes a novel approach to this. He invites us to stop making sense. Right? No, you don't have the reference. Damn it. No, never seen this. It's a good making of a good concert. Anyway, he invites us to stop making sense. He invites us to accept the absurd of the world. In order to accept the absurd of the world, he proposes a specific exercise of imagining Sisyphus happy. Have you ever heard about the myth of Sisyphus? Every day, yeah. Sisyphus.
Fixing problems.
Right. So Camus went for, one must imagine Sisyphus happy. So Sisyphus was condemned to a life, an eternal life of punishment, of taking a boulder, holding up a hill, and watching the boulder fall down and re-roll up a hill eternally, right? Is a punishment that is tiresome, boring, endless, meaningless, right? It is, in every aspect, an horrible thing. And Camus' invitation is not to increase acceptation. It's not the invitation of Lacan. It's not, we should be able to accept our fate. It is to say, Camus actually wrote several books about revolting and was in the French resistance against the Nazis, right? He was not about acceptance. Camus, what he was proposing is, if you can imagine Sisyphus finding meaning in what he does, then whatever you find to that will help you nourish your needs of meaning in your daily life. That's the key. It's not trying to find a real meaning. It's trying to just nourish this need, knowing with conscience that you are nourishing this need. Yeah? Oh yeah, I didn't. Say thank you. Just like, this one will work for me. I don't care about the others. I just want Sisyphus in it. Right, thank you. Right. Camus' approach is to say, okay, whatever I can find as a solution, right? And people do some very beautiful jokes with it. Like, imagine Sisyphus having achieved unlocked, I have 1,000 times I do this, or X thousand times I do this, or things like that. Or maybe Sisyphus really like getting ripped, right? The matter is not which solutions you find. The matter of the exercise is saying, okay, how can I find ways that nourish my need of meaning without lying to myself that there is an ulterior meaning? So Camus' invitation, in his words, is to say, going from meaning to meanings, from truth to truths. Like, not to being certain that there is no bigger meaning, just accepting to nourish myself with those small meanings I give, and accepting that maybe I'll never find a bigger one. Yeah? Yay! It's a very happy proposition. And Another one that helped me a lot is Donella Meadows, but I do not have the time to cover her. She has this beautiful article where she talks about surviving the change of a system called Dancing with Systems that I highly recommend to everybody trying to fight against reaction. I'll just like copy and paste this in the... So yeah, Camus' approach is foregoing completely a big approach of meanings, foregoing the idea of a bigger truth, foregoing even an idea of whatever there is a God or not, or like things like that, and going towards nourishing yourself, your needs of meaning in a daily basis while you try to advance your fight against reaction, your fight against nihilism. And he finishes with a quote that I like a lot, that I would like to read for you and finish my talk on that. I leave Sisyphus at the foot of the mountain. One always finds one's burdens again. But Sisyphus teaches the higher fidelity that negates the gods and raises rocks. He too concludes that all is well. This universe henceforth without a master seems to him neither sterile nor futile. Each atom of that stone, each mineral flake of the night-filled mountain is in itself forms a world. The struggle itself towards the heights enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. That's all I have for you, friends. Thank you.